Darlings, it's Mummy, Sybil Brunson, and I'm coming to you live from Cherry Grove on Fire Island. And it's September 1st. And it's that strange time when summer is still here on the calendar, but fall is definitely on its way. And here we are, September 1st, 2021, and we're waiting for Hurricane Ida to come up the northeast and dump whatever she has left in her on us up here in the New York, the tri-state New York, New England area. There you see Long Island Sound. And as I said, we're on Cherry Grove. This is the intersection of Duryea and Bayview, and this is my wonderful friend Michael Fitzgerald's art installation, which he paints rocks and he makes sculptures out of found objects, and he paints paintings, his wonderful abstract paintings, and he's turned this whole end of the dead end part of Duryea into his own living art gallery, which people can visit all the time. And it's wonderful art installations. I mean, look at this, years and years of painted rocks that are now becoming sedimentary rocks. I mean, it's just, even dead trees are perfect for his art. So we're sort of waiting for Hurricane Ida right now, and the island is kind of in standby. We've had, we had Hurricane Henri, which turned out to be mostly nothing for us. And then we had an unpredicted storm with no name that came. It was absolutely the end of the world this past Friday. So it's you can't figure it out. You know, the ocean has its own excitement. Speaking of excitement, look at these elephant ears. Lois and Dave have grown these elephant ears again. And if these don't remind you of Chernobyl or 3 Mile Island, I don't know what will. Positively. We have had fewer squirrels and rabbits in the neighborhood, though. And we're not sure if this plant has been consuming wildlife and stray kitties or something. Anyway, I'm about to take you into my garden, which has never been so scraggly, partly because of the distance we now have to travel. We travel all the way from Philadelphia to come to Fire Island now, and we have not been able to do it weekly as we used to when we were in New York. We used to come to Fire Island every weekend, and we would, be here for days on end, etc., etc. Now we do it as catch can, and you can see that my garden took a real hit this year because I wasn't here to spend money planting. So some pots were filled with weeds, or we like to call them wildflowers. Certainly that whole area up there, which other years has been gazanias and, oh God, all sorts of wonderful things. Here's my dwarf morning glories. I did manage to get those in. Those are evolvulus, and they're not blooming very much because the sun hasn't been out, but they're lovely, and you've seen them cascade, over the edge. And then here's my wonderful perennial, they're not perennials, they're actually annuals, but Scaviola, which I plant every year in these urns. And usually we have a praying mantis, but I haven't had a praying mantis yet this year. I redid my hens and chicks, but they're already growing out of the pot. Wait, let me see if any side of this is pretty. This side is pretty. This is the side that's pretty right here. I'm turning it, I'm sorry, not that. There you go. That's a little bit more. That's more what hens and chicks should look like. That's what they should look like. That's what they should look like. These are weeds, and I need to attend them. But you could see these hens and chicks need to be sort of, that's pretty. That's not bad. Anyway, so some of these pots are, full of weeds, and some have got asters, and the whole garden area. I mean, look at this. Tragic. Crabgrass. Mummy's gardening with crabgrass now. My painted fern suffered a little bit. I don't know what's going on there. My bladder campions, also known as maiden tears, are a little pot bound, and I have to address them. But look at this wonderful red New Guinean patience. It doesn't even look real. It's interesting. And here next to it is its sister New Guinean patience, which was white and isn't blooming at all. So who knows? My heuchera is doing well, although I have to trim those flowers off it and trim some of the dead leaves. And I completely missed this year's liatris, or gay feathers. There they are. I trimmed them down, but the flowering was, when I wasn't here. My balloon flowers, I mostly missed that. I did a little bit of a tour-ette on those. But look at my poor lavender, absolutely suffering this year. My woolly thyme is doing okay, but it's a garden of like orphans this year. I worry that, God, would I love to look in there and find a wonderful praying mantis like every other year, but no. Anyway, it's an orphan garden this year, and I apologize to nature and to all my plants that struggled. It's an interesting garden because although it has a kind of beauty with the wet decks and the bright green foliage, it certainly looks like more of a garden in October for me than on September 1st. But you know what? Again, and this I have to teach myself, life is so much about accepting the things that we cannot change. So recognizing what we can change and do something about it, and accepting the things we cannot change, and the wisdom always to know the difference. And that, there's so many adages and so many mottos that we can use for our life, and that certainly is one of them. And so this year, this is what my garden looked like, and I weeded it and I have empty pots of soil, with little things growing in them, but it's sort of like accepting the kind of beauty that this is, which is a different kind of beauty than the normal. So, and I accept it, and I embrace it, and I am grateful for it. And this, of course, September 1st is the anniversary of Princess Diana's death in the car accident back in Paris, now over 20 years ago, 24 years ago, I guess, today. And I remember exactly where I was and what I was doing, and what George and I were doing when we heard the news. We were driving back from Provincetown, where we had spent a lovely couple of weeks, and we were coming back, and we were going to stay at his brother's apartment in Boston. And we had been driving, and we had been playing music that we had brought along on the sound system. So we weren't listening to the news. We didn't turn on the radio at all during that drive, which was, hours from the tip of Provincetown, Cape Cod, all the way down the Cape and then into Boston. We arrived in Boston fairly late in the evening, and we got settled in. We were going to spend the night, and then we were going to take the train back to New York City. And then I had a show at Splash Bar that night. So the night of September 1st, I was actually going to be commuting all the way back to New York to do a show on that Sunday. It was a Sunday night at Splash Bar. And then Labor Day, of course, was the next day. So to make a long story short, we were coming back. We got into Todd's apartment. We turned on the TV, and lo and behold, all programming was preempted because of the news bulletins about Princess Diana having been injured in a car accident. And the reports at that point were that she was injured, and then it got more serious, and as it got later and later, her injuries seemed to be fairly serious, but it was all very vague. It was Brian Williams and whoever else. Still sort of vague on every channel we turned. It was still not quite clear. And of course, 10 o'clock our time is 4 a.m. in London or whatever. Anyway, we went to bed. It was getting late, and we knew we had to be up early, and I had to show the next night. So we woke up in the morning, and on September 1st, we heard the news that Diana had died, and either at the hospital or on scene, and we were stunned. I remember I turned on the TV in the morning, and the first words out of whoever the announcer was that, and of course, we have heard that Diana Spencer died last night, da, 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 da. And I remember saying, oh my God. We couldn't believe it. And I wondered if the show was going to be canceled because maybe the bar might be closed. Again, as Americans, we might not be as invested in Diana Spencer, as the British are, but still, it was a cataclysm. It was an international cataclysm about a celebrity who was massive. She was truly an icon. And so it's one of those events that makes you sit up and take notice, so to speak. And as I always say, and as I said in my my essay, which I posted on my Facebook page and on my Sybil Says website, it's one of those times where the fragility of life, the fragility of life, the tenuousness of life is so startling that it truly does make you remember to be present, to be mindful, and to be grateful for even the smallest things, that the colors of the world, that the breeze moving those bare branches of those plants that have lost their blooms, that the wonder of that, even the wonder on a rainy day, is absolutely miraculous. There are miraculous things in front of us all the time. There are miraculous people in front of us all the time. So, remember, be in the world and of the world. Remember to be present, to be mindful, and to be grateful, because everything you see and smell and touch and taste and hear and hold in your hand and your heart and in your mind, all of this is borrowed. Everything is ultimately only borrowed.